Imagine walking out to your own land, your boots sinking slightly into the dirt you've worked for years, and finding a shiny padlock clamped onto the one thing that keeps your family, your animals, and your life running, your water well. That's exactly what I saw one blazing summer morning. A lock. My lock? No, it was HOA Karen's doing. She had the nerve to trespass onto my property and chain shut the well pump, like she owned the rights to my water. I froze, staring at it, my throat tightening, not from thirst but from rage. Water out here isn't just convenience, it's survival. And Karen knew that. She lived across the road in her spotless little mansion, the kind where the grass is chemically green and the sprinklers hiss like snakes every morning. And now she wanted control of my water too. It all started 2 weeks earlier when Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood HOA, told me I had to start paying her a usage fee for my own well. She claimed the HOA maintained the underground water rights, which was a flat-out lie. My deed, signed and sealed, clearly stated the well was mine, drilled and funded by my grandfather decades ago. But Karen wasn't after truth. She was after leverage. She strutted over in her wide-brimmed sun hat, talking down at me like I was some squatter on my own land. "If you don't want trouble, Jack," she said, "you'll start contributing. The HOA can't let freeloaders drain resources." Freeloaders. That word stuck in my chest like a splinter. I built this farm with my own hands. Every drop from that well kept my cattle alive, kept my orchard blooming, and kept my family fed. And now this woman wanted to twist it into her own piggy bank. When I refused, she smiled, and said, "Then maybe I'll have to make sure nobody uses it until you see reason." I thought she was bluffing, until that padlock showed up. I walked back to the house, fists balled so tight my nails dug into my palms. My wife looked at me, concern etched into her face, and all I could say was, "It's war. She wants a fight, she's got one." Because one thing Karen didn't realize, when you cut off a rancher's water, you don't just cross a line, you start a battle you can't win. I didn't waste time. The first thing I did was march straight over to Karen's house. Her yard looked like something out of a catalog. Artificial turf on one side, flower beds trimmed into perfect little squares, and her sprinkler system ticking away like clockwork. The woman obsessed over appearances, and she thought intimidation would scare me into compliance. I knocked hard enough to rattle her spotless glass door. When she opened it, her smug grin told me she already knew why I was there. "Ah, Jack," she said, sipping her iced tea like a queen on her porch throne. "Thirsty, are we?" I kept my voice steady, but every word carried weight. "That's my well you locked, Karen. Cut the games and take it off." She tilted her head, mocking. "Your well? The HOA board voted last night. Since your well water seeps through shared soil, it's considered a community resource. You'll need to pay a monthly fee, plus back dues." Her words were rehearsed, dripping with false authority. I knew for a fact there was no board vote. She was the board. The other neighbors just nodded along to avoid her wrath. I leaned closer, my shadow covering her. "You've got one chance. Remove the lock or you'll regret it." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, Jack, threats? That's not very neighborly. Tell you what, why don't you cool off? And when you're ready to write a check, I'll hand over the key." That was it. She had declared war. I didn't shout, didn't argue. I simply turned on my heel and walked away, which probably irritated her more than any insult could. But inside I was boiling. I had no intention of waiting for her permission to use my own water. I also had no intention of cutting that lock myself, because that would make me look guilty if this mess went legal. So I came up with another plan. If Karen wanted to play dirty, I'd show her how it felt to go without the one thing she valued most. Her perfect water supply, her sprinklers, her garden, her entire lush kingdom all ran through the main HOA-controlled water line. And lucky for me, that line came straight across the easement near my property. That night, under the cover of darkness, I took a walk. With a wrench, a shut-off valve I installed years ago, and a resolve harder than steel, I closed the line tight. The hiss of water draining out was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. Karen wanted control. Well, now she'd know what it felt like to lose it. The next morning was pure satisfaction. I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee, waiting for the show. The sun rose over the fields, casting light across Karen's mansion. And right on cue, the sprinklers sputtered. First a weak spray, then nothing but air hissing out of the nozzles. Within minutes, I saw her pacing the yard, phone in hand, waving frantically like the world had just ended. I could almost hear her shriek from across the road. "Why aren't these working?" Her garden, usually glistening with dew, looked limp and thirsty. The sight was priceless. She had locked me out of my own water, and now her perfect green empire was drying up by the second. An hour later, a white HOA maintenance truck rolled in. 2 guys hopped out with clipboards, scratching their heads as Karen jabbed her manicured finger toward the dead sprinklers. I knew exactly what they'd find. Nothing. The line was sealed tight. I pretended to mind my own business, trimming a branch near the fence. But when Karen spotted me, her face twisted into something between rage and disbelief. She stormed over, heels crunching on gravel. "What did you do?" she spat. I leaned on my saw calmly. "Morning, Karen. Having water problems?" Her eyes narrowed. "You shut it off. Admit it." I shrugged. Funny accusation. Considering you're the one trespassing and locking other people's property, maybe it's just a busted system. Pipes don't last forever. Her cheeks flushed red. She hated not having proof, and I wasn't about to hand her any. That night, she escalated. While most folks were winding down, Karen marched around with flashlights and her maintenance crew, trying to trace the water line. They stomped near my boundary, muttering and digging. But that's when she made her second big mistake. She crossed onto my property without so much as a word. My trail cameras caught everything. Her crew, the tools. Trespassing, plain as day. When I checked the footage, I nearly laughed out loud. It was evidence gold. By dawn, her lawn looked worse. Patches of brown creeping in, roses drooping like sad flags. Meanwhile, I'd taken bolt cutters to that padlock on my well, filming the whole thing for documentation. My family had water again, legally and rightfully. And Karen, she was about to learn that when you try to choke a man's lifeline, you'd better be prepared to lose your own. The war wasn't over, but the tide had turned. Karen must have thought she could outlast me, but what she didn't understand was that this wasn't about convenience anymore. It was about principle. She had crossed the line, and now the whole neighborhood was watching. By the third day without water, her front lawn looked like a battlefield. Brown patches spread like wildfire, the flower beds sagged, and her precious roses shriveled into brittle sticks. I knew appearances were everything to her, and now those appearances were crumbling. That morning, I drove into town and stopped by the county office. With the footage from my trail cameras, plus the deed proving my sole ownership of the well, I filed a formal complaint for trespassing and tampering. The clerk raised her eyebrows when she saw Karen on video, stomping across my property like she was queen of the land. "This should be enough to bring her in for questioning," the clerk said, sliding me the paperwork. I didn't even have to wait long. The following afternoon, 2 sheriff's deputies pulled into Karen's driveway. I leaned on my fence post, watching as she tried to sweet-talk them in her porch chair. But their arms folded, expressions stern. Minutes later, they were walking her around the yard, pointing at the evidence I'd provided. Karen's face drained of color. The deputies slapped her with citations for trespassing and unlawful interference with private property. Her HOA cronies stood at the curb, whispering like scared schoolchildren. The queen had fallen, and her subjects didn't want to share the fallout. But I wasn't done. With the citations filed, the county utility department backed me up. Karen had no authority over my well. The lock she installed was illegal, and I was within my rights to cut it. The water supply she lorded over was confirmed as separate from mine, and since she'd tampered with easements near my property, her HOA faced fines too. That night, for the first time in weeks, I sat under the stars with my wife and kids, hearing the soft hum of our pump working again. Water trickled into the troughs, cattle drank deeply, and my orchard rustled in the breeze. Across the road, Karen's house stood dark, her sprinklers silent, her empire dry. The message was clear: you don't steal another person's lifeline. Out here, water isn't just a utility, it's survival. And when Karen tried to weaponize it, she ended up choking herself instead. I didn't win with fists. I didn't win with threats. I won by standing firm, documenting everything, and letting the truth bury her. And the best part? Every neighbor who had once feared her now knew she could bleed. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this wild HOA Karen showdown, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe so you never miss another crazy story. Got a story like this yourself, or think Karen deserved it? Drop a comment below. I love reading your reactions and stories. And remember, share this video with anyone who needs a good laugh today.